Solomon famously said, "There is nothing new under the sun." And that is certainly true, and it reminded me of that the other day when I heard that MSNBC last week did a hit piece on homeschooling in response to Kirk Cameron's upcoming film called The Homeschool Awakening. So it reminded me of a situation back in the 1980s. We had decided to homeschool our family. The state of Texas, the Attorney General said that he didn't believe parents were qualified to raise their kids, much less teach them at home. That was junkyard dog Jim Maddox, one of the last Democrats elected to the Attorney General's office. And as a result of that, homeschoolers in Texas, a small group, realized that we had to be involved politically to defend ourselves because people in the legislature and statewide officials did not like the fact that parents were choosing to take full responsibility of the education of their children. And in this period, sometime in the early 1990s, I had a statewide Republican judicial candidate who was in Lubbock. And we spent some time together, and as usual, I spent my time with him talking to him about homeschooling, explaining the process and why we needed freedom for parents to do this. And this was his response. He said, "Tim, my concern is if people like you, if good people like you are pulling their kids out of the public schools, what is that going to do to the public school system?" And I tried to be kind, but what I said to him is, I'm concerned about my children. I'm not concerned about the institution. And that reminded me of this whole hit piece that happened in MSNBC, the far left MSNBC. A reporter did this report arguing that the homeschool movement was a racist effort by the right-wing evangelical community to, quote unquote, destroy public education. That's right. Their take was that allowing parents to choose to teach their kids at home was somehow an attack against the institution of public education. So let's break that down. Here's what they're really saying. What they're really saying is we don't like the fact that parents are taking their kids out of a school system where we control the curricula and we can indoctrinate these children and we can work against what most parents believe. Here's their problem. What happened in 2020 with the pandemic was two things. First, many parents began to clearly see what was being taught to their kids in the public school system. So two things happened as a result of that. One is many parents said, you know what, this is not right. We're going to get involved and go into these school board meetings and try to change this. So what we've seen in the last 2 years is a dramatic increase of parents. In fact, parental rights, we were for and fighting for parental rights before it was cool. So in 2021, we saw the governor's race in Virginia where the Democratic nominee for governor of Virginia made the statement in a debate that parents shouldn't have any impact on the curricula or what was taught in their schools. And the Republican nominee for governor jumped on that like, as we would say in Texas, a chicken on a June bug. And he argued that parents should absolutely have input into what was being taught in their schools. And what happened was a Republican governor was elected in a blue state of Virginia. And he began to implement these policies of allowing parents to participate in that process. And as a result of that, we saw all over the country, including Texas, we saw parents coming to school board meetings. And unfortunately, in many cases, we saw these school boards saying, we're not going to listen to you. In fact, we're going to arrest you. We're going to say you can't come to this meeting. And it set up a conflict. And what was the conflict over? The conflict was over who gets to decide what our kids are taught. Who gets to decide these policies of the local school district? So that is one thing that's happened. We saw on May 7th in the school board and city council elections all over Texas that parents are waking up. They are beginning to take back their school boards, and that is important. But because here's another issue that's come up in these school board situations is the old guard in the school boards, the people who believe that the enlightened educational experts should be the one who decide what the kids are taught and not the parents, they also tend to oppose allowing homeschoolers to participate in UIL activities. And the new people elected these school boards, these parental rights advocates, they don't have a problem with that at all. So that is one thing that's happening. The other thing that's happening, of course, is that, and we saw this in 2020, when homeschooling exploded. And according to the Census Bureau, in the spring of 2020, homeschooling was at about 3 or 4%, and by the fall of 2020, it was 11% nationally. And in Texas, we went from under 3%, or between 3 and 4%, to 12% of the students being homeschooled in Texas. And as a result of that, not only has homeschooling continued to grow, but now what we've seen this year as well as 2021 is we have seen public school enrollment dropping. And this is true not just in Texas, but all over the country. So now you have what I call the public school lobby very, very concerned. Why are they concerned? Because that's a loss of funding. So we have the left concerned because the institution that they control, by and large, is being undermined because of the loss of these students. We have this battle going on at the school board situation, and now we have more and more people. In fact, one of the great things that happened is all these people started homeschooling. The stories show that many of these people that started homeschooling in 2020 had said, we always thought about homeschooling. This has kind of forced us into that. And many, many people have found this is good for our family. They are learning well. It's a great situation for our family. The schedule is better. It's just overall a great thing. And the polls and studies show that some people are putting their kids back in the public schools, but not large numbers. So that's what we have going on here. So you put that in perspective, those things of the increase of homeschooling across the country and in Texas. You see the fight parental rights now at the school board section, and parents moving back in there and taking control of those school boards. And now we have Kirk Cameron, a good friend of ours who was at our Allen conference just a few months ago, is about to launch this homeschool documentary called The Homeschool Awakening. And one of the comments he makes there is that public enemy number one for parents is the public school district. And why does he say that? He says that for the 2 points I've just made, that they don't want parents involved in the policymaking process. They don't want to allow parents to remove their kids. They want to, quote unquote, protect the institution. So you put that in perspective, and now MSNBC comes out with this hit piece and basically argue that homeschooling is terrible. It is racist. It is racist because this is the plan of the quote-unquote evangelical right to quote-unquote destroy public education. Well, there's only one problem with that. Guess who the biggest demographic groups are in this explosion of homeschooling and the growth of homeschooling? Blacks and Hispanics. Homeschooling among blacks increased by 16%. And in the Hispanics by 12%. And of course, Asians and whites only 9%. So it's a little hard to make that argument that homeschooling is a racist attack on public education, the institution. No, homeschooling is the action of parents deciding, you know what, I'm going to take full responsibility for teaching my own children, and I'm going to opt out of the system. That is great and wonderful, and we continue to support parents who are doing that. On the other side, we applaud parents who stay in the system and say, we're going to go to the school board meetings, and we're going to elect people who believe with us that parents should have input on the direction and the education of their children. So I hope you will share this information. The exciting thing is homeschooling is growing. There are tremendous opportunities out there. It's going to be exciting to see what happens in the future. Hope you share this video. I hope you subscribe to our channel. Go to thsc.org for more information about homeschooling. And thank you for helping us keep Texas families free.